Hello, hello, hello. Antphrodite here, your pop culture psychic, back to you again with another true crime reading. This time, it is on episode 4 of Unsolved Mysteries. If you haven't seen episode 3, I'll put a link up here. I've been doing the whole series. This is volume 2, though. Season 2, volume 2. I've done season 1, and now I'm doing season 2. So this episode is called Tsunami Spirits. So first of all, I did not know that I was going to be so emotional. Watching everyone panic and be fear-driven and horrified and all the footage of the tsunami completely destroyed me. Like, I was sobbing in tears, and that man was talking about finding his older daughter draped over a tree and his wife in rubble and his baby girl in rubble. I was destroyed. Like, this is definitely the most emotional episode for sure. Like, I was sobbing. Like, this is so terrifying, and a lot of, I think, most of us' worst fear. So it was definitely an emotional video for me, or emotional episode, and I think this is going to be an emotional video for me. So, that being said, there's not too much to do a reading on. So I figured with this episode, I could maybe give some education about what was going on or what I think was going on. But I will do a poll just to kind of see what energy comes up. And then we'll kind of go from there and just give you what I think is going on with the spiritual phenomena. I love this episode, one of my favorites, but it's definitely a heavy episode. Not so much mystery as much as it's paranormal activity. So remember, these readings are all alleged for entertainment purpose only, and let's get started. So, just going to do a small little casual poll before I kind of go into what I think is going on. Okay, so, this is exactly what I expected. So, the Fool is about being serious and not naive. So, this isn't a joke. Not at all. The Two of Pentacles is like an even exchange. So that means, like, I'm giving what you're asking. This is honest. And the Seven of Cups is about being realistic as well. So that's not someone who's like clouded judgment. Those are realistic and real claims. The Lover's card is reversed with the King of Swords upright and the Moon reversed. So the Lover's card would be about people working together, but it's reversed, which means there's no like working together to try to make this bigger than it is. The King of Swords would be the main focus, right? I'm assuming it's probably the monk here, being able to speak their truth. And the Moon is reversed, which is about honesty. So if it was upright, it'd be like deceptive, but it's reversed. So that's about being honest. Chariot's reversed. So Chariot is like a halt in progress, and the King of Wands is upright with the Three of Pentacles. So to me, this has to do with issues with taking action. So I think that perhaps there maybe was some sort of frustration before the tsunami when it comes to like, I don't know if it's like the money that's spent to prevent situations like this, or perhaps there's something, because this has to be in establishment way before the tsunami ever hit. There has to be some sort of issue, because like jobs, so somebody was like fighting for something and they ended up being right, and they didn't want to be right, but there's definitely something there. I don't know if that's like, some sort of political thing or what it is in terms of the way that worked out, but there definitely seems to be some sort of like frustration with the way things were handled beforehand, because somebody was like, oh, we should have done this. If we would have done this, it would have been as bad. There's something like that. That's kind of to be expected. Stuff like that is probably kind of expected. I mean, there's not really much I'm going to be able to get here. So this card right here, this one is about frustration, and then the Nine of Cups is upright with the Strain card. So the good thing here is it does seem like because of this, there was a lot of activism, and they were able to get what they want. I hadn't actually looked into the history of this, so I probably should have done that. Maybe educate me in in the comments if you have, because there seems to be some sort of vulnerability and sensitivity that happened because of this, that allowed the gates for change to open and allowed a lot of policies to change and things like that. So yeah, High Priestess is upright, the Magician is reversed, and the Knight of Wands. I definitely think that. So I think that there were things that they could have done to help prevent disasters, but I don't think they actually could have prevented this one. So I definitely see this as one of those things where it's like, it was a freak accident. Like, nobody can really blame anyone. Sure, there are maybe some things they could have done to have more money, or they could have maybe projected certain things, but they couldn't have prevented this entire thing. So it definitely seems like a freak accident, a disaster. Shocker that I pulled the Six of Swords. If you look at the Six of Swords right here, it's obviously like water and a boat and just disaster. It's reversed. The Queen of Cups is upright and the Hermit's upright as well. So that to me is about a highly emotional thing that was an isolated incident that couldn't have been predicted. So, okay. So I'm not shocked to see this. So I told you there's not going to really be too much to be able to read, but I can kind of tell you what I believe is happening. So I believe these stories, tarot's sort of corroborating the story. When you die, okay, there's a lot that goes into it, but this is what I believe happens when you die. When you die, you go through a life review. You see your life and how it impacted you, and you also see how your life impacted those around you. And think of it like Harry Potter, where you look into the looking glass and you're able to kind of see everything. It's like that. So you'll be able to see the eyes, like your life through the eyes of a daughter, a sister, a brother, a friend, whatever, and how everything you did affected them, good and bad. And I believe we're then rehabilitated. So if you did something really quote unquote bad or whatever, you're rehabilitated, and there's like a rehabilitation process. What happens when you tragically die, okay, is that you take a different exit point. So there are multiple exit points. So think of it this way. Your life is always being rewritten. So when you're set to die, quote unquote, there are many ways that you could die. Let's put it that way. So if, let's say that, you take a left here, then your whole roadmap changes. And so there's many different exit points that could happen. And so it's a series of like doing something and then something else happens that could lead you to an exit point. So when it comes to a situation like this, I'm sure if you interviewed people at the time, can't now, a lot of people probably were like, something told me not to go here. Something told me not to go here. A lot of people will like get a message or feel a strong intuitive pull to like avoid something that ends up being a disaster or something like that. But not everyone, and it's not always going to happen that way. And sometimes we're humans. We're not going to realize that or recognize that. So you can't blame yourself. But what I will say is that when you have a tragic exit point, whether it was intended to be an exit point or not, what happens is you can get stuck. And that's exactly what everyone was experiencing with like this spiritual phenomenon. You become an earthbound spirit. Earthbound spirits are easier to see, easier to communicate with, easier to be poltergeist because they can touch things easier. They're more tangible. They haven't crossed over yet. So what you're supposed to do is envision like a door or some sort of opening or a light where they can walk into and guide them into that light, because they have to cross over. Someone will supposedly someone's supposed to come over and grab them, usually their family member or something from the other side to grab them, an angel, whatever, to pull them to the other side. So when there's a large amount of tragic events, the trauma of that can leave them trapped. So what I've realized is some of them refuse to go into the light. Some of them don't want to believe it. So you can't be forced into the light sometimes when a tragic scenario happens. And so they become earthbound and kind of just walk around. And they can get stuck there for years. A lot of haunted houses have earthbound spirits that are trapped. They're terrified and they're scared of what that thing is. They don't know what it is. And you also have to understand something. They're probably experiencing other phenomenon. There's probably darker spirits or demonic spirits, whatever, depending on where they are. So they're kind of in limbo and they're terrified. And our sense of time is much different here than it is in the spirit realm. So years can go by here, but for the spirit realm, it's not going to feel that long. So I think that's another thing that sometimes you're like, how are they trapped for so long? Probably because of the way time works. It's very different over there. So I think that when all of that happened, there's a lot of residual energy as well, which I'll get into in a little bit. But earthbound spirits, they're going to be looking for their family. They're going to be walking their normal life, and they're going to try to live their normal life, but they can't. They have to be crossed over. The other thing that's going to happen when it's a tragic event, especially a historical event, is you're going to have residual energy where the energy is left over and it just repeats the pattern over and over and over again. So that's why you see certain things like this woman keeps walking into the lake over and over again. This guy keeps going up the stairs every single day. That's residual energy. A lot of haunted buildings have that as well. It's residual. It's not always the spirit themselves. Sometimes we just accidentally or purposely leave an imprint into wherever we were because we did it so often that imprint leaves. It's residual energy. So a lot of historical events will have a lot of residual energy energy. So that's why sometimes you'll see people on boats that aren't real. I'm sure a lot of people going into taxis, some of them are probably earthbound spirits, but some of them are probably residual energy because they went into taxis every single day. So that imprint was left really hard. Energy is really, 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 really strong, and it's sometimes hard to get rid of. So I think something like that is so impactful and so tragic. All of the energy, you have to remember, it's the energy of the people dying, it's the energy of people mourning, it's the energy of the people being missed, it's the tragicness, it's the energy of the world watching and projecting their energy into everyone that lives there. All of that is going to manifest into what we have. It's like a giant bubble that's just being fed and fed and fed, and that's why we have all of that residual stuff happening over and over and over again, as well as the fact that this is a very spiritual place. I mean, most of Japan has a lot of spiritual origins to it, a lot of history to it. And so when you have an already spiritual place and you add on a spiritual activity to a tragic event, it's going to happen. I will also go into a little bit of what they were talking about with the woman. So the woman who was like a medium, who was talking to the spirits and stuff and said they kept coming inside of her, she's a channel. What I do is technically a channel, okay? My skill set is being able to go in and out of that channel. So because she's a channel and she's not protecting herself properly, they're walking inside of her. The thing that I was a bit confused about, and she might not be aware of this, is they can't go inside of you unless you allow it. So that was the only confusing part. Some part of her had to be open and willing for them to go inside of her, for them to jump inside of her. A spirit just can't run into you. You have to be vulnerable. I have had my own possession experience. I don't really like to talk about it because it was a very, very, very weird experience for me. There is footage of it, but I'm scared to share it, girl, because it's terrifying. But as someone that is a channel and has had people jump inside of me, it's absolutely terrifying. It only happens when you're vulnerable. I had gotten high for the first time. Never again will I ever get high ever again. Let's just leave it at that. That's the only reason they were able to jump in me. Otherwise, it's not able to be. So something had to be allowing them to jump inside of her in order to channel through her. Also, when you are channeling, you can push them out, because that's what I was doing when it was happening to me. It felt like I was squished up against a chair. Like, you know, when you're on a bus and someone who's a little bit larger sits next to you and pushes you up against the window. That's what it was like. So that's what that's like. And like, you're constantly trying to push them out and you see them controlling you, but you can't control you. So, yeah, I was able to push them out and then they would come back in and you lose control. But at the end of the day, the only reason that was happening is because I was vulnerable. So my question is, what was going on that she was so vulnerable? Was she in a bad mental health space? Was she doing some sort of ritual? What was it? Because she wasn't protecting her space, but at the same time, jumping inside of you, they need permission. You can't just be possessed magically. There needs to be permission, or you need to be extremely vulnerable. That's it. I did like the monk. I thought the monk was really open-minded. I thought it was beautiful that he has a place for survivors to go, to not feel alone and to express their paranormal activity. And I'm telling you right now, I will say this, a lot of people don't believe in what we do. A lot of people don't believe in the dead and stuff like that, whatever. Every single person that I have ever met either has a story or knows someone with a story. And most people will come up to me and tell me their experience and tell me that they would never admit this in public, but... So before you go and judge anyone for their paranormal experiences, make sure you're careful and you really, really, really assess everyone around you, because I'm telling you, the people you least expect have had the experiences themselves, and people you love and respect that would never admit it in public will come to me in private and tell me that they've had their own experiences. So I guarantee if I knocked on all of your neighbors' doors, most of them would have a story. And if they didn't have a story themselves, they know someone that does. So... be respectful of it, and just love each other. This episode was hard. I'm sorry I couldn't give a bigger, more reading. I'm not a medium yet. Maybe one day. I've had experiences, but my abilities are limited. But I believe that's what's going on. So if you guys love this series, please watch the other episodes. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you guys want to tip me, I have a PayPal. It's linked down below. Follow me Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, Antphrodite, same name everywhere. I love you guys, and until next time, bye.